Hey everybody, it's Rory from ANS Gear. We've got a brand new product from Planet Eclipse. We have the CS3 mechanical frame, or CS3 Mech Frame right here. So this is a direct swap over to the standard electric CS3 that then transformed the gun into a mechanical system. So if you're looking for mech play, you're playing in tournaments that are mech tournaments, or you just want to change the rate of fire, slow the gun way down, even though you can do that with the electronic setup. There's a lot of people who are super stoked on mech play and want to be able to take their crazy guns and bring them to a mech setup right there. So here is the mech frame for the CS3. I have a CS3 right here because we're going to take it and we're going to put it into this frame. We're going to show you how to do all that stuff. Let's just open up the box here so you can see what your CS3 is going to look like, or your mech setup. So the mech frame comes in a case like the CS3 comes in, and like the LV2, it comes in the same color, same fabric, same setup case that your gun does. So it's basically a matching case. We unzip it, we fold it open, and then we can see we've got our mech frame set up in here. We've got our spares kit right down in there, and then we've also got our manual. Now, in this mech frame setup, it comes with a bunch of stuff already here. It comes with the front grip, the rubber front grip. It's there. You do not need to take this front grip off and put it onto your mech frame. It comes with the rear grip set, the back and front panel on the rear grip. It's on there. If you look at the back of the mech frame, you'll see that it's got buttons and a window. And then you might think, well, that seems weird for a mech frame to have buttons and a window set up in the back. That's actually a pretty important part of the gun right there. We've got our trigger going right here. And as you can see right in there, let me just give a little zoomy zoom right here, that it's now that adjustable trigger. So you can adjust the pivot point of the trigger. You want it raked out, you want it brought back, you can control that now. And if anybody else makes a shoe, just like on the CS3 right here, if people make different designs and different shapes, move that over, on the CS3, you'll be able to incorporate that if they design one for the mech frame on there. All right, so let's come back out a little bit. We've got our safety on the side right here, so our push button safety. And we have a built-in ASA and regulator. You do not need to port your ASA and reg internals into the frame when you get this. It already comes in there. So you get the grips, you get the new trigger setup, you get the regulator, you get the ASA. It's all there in one kit. So no longer are you having to take stuff off of your old one, put it into your new one, and then make it ready to go from there. Now, we talked about this on the back, the button and the window right there. So there is one thing you can take from your frame and put into the mech frame, and that's your electronics package, your MME boards, your micro switch, your wiring to the front and to the battery assembly. If I pull this off the front, and remember, we're still on the mech frame here, this front is set up for batteries. A lot of people wanted to know how they could have a game timer, shot counter, all the things from the electronics package that comes in their CS3 incorporated into their mech frame. And with this new mech frame, let me pop these grips off, you'll see that you can take the electronics from your CS3 and put them into your mech frame. Now, that does not mean that now you have a single trigger gun that fires electronically. That's not happening. Because you have a mechanical solenoid in here, you're not taking the electric solenoid and putting it into this gun. It doesn't work electric anymore. All you have is the board tracking the gun and tracking your shot count, your rate of fire, your game timer. Those things are now available because you brought the electronics over. Doesn't make the gun shoot electronically. It just gives you the electric features, that were in your other gun. I want to make that very clear. So it's still a mech gun, just not an electric firing mechanical gun, which doesn't even make any sense if you think about it. If we look at the side here, so we've got our hinge assembly right here. We've got our three-way valve inside of there. One cool thing about this, or one new feature about this, I should say, is the plate right here. It's adjustable. So now you can take, let me come in a little bit. If we want to control the timing of the gun a little bit, we want to advance the timing or retard the timing, slow the timing down, we can control where this blue arm sits in conjunction with the pin sticking out and how the trigger interacts with it and moves it back and forth. Let me kind of show you what I'm talking about. If I take an Allen key here, I'm going to move this just out of the way so it's sitting on here. So we've got our plate right here. We've got our arm going up. The arm rolls on this little piece right in here. So there's a bearing on the backside of the trigger that pushes on this ramp right here, which moves this backwards. It turns this rotational movement into a linear movement, moving back and forth. Now inside here, when the gun is gassed up, there's a pin that pops out of the three-way and it rests against the back of this blue arm. So when we pull the trigger, it's going to take that pin and it's going to move the pin backwards and it's going to activate our cycling. And then once you let go, the pin pops back forward. So every time you pull the trigger, you push the pin in, pin pops back out. And that's one cycle right there. So depending on where this ramp interacts with this bearing will control how far or how close it is to the pin that's sticking out inside of here. And by taking these screws and just loosening them up, we can adjust this plate inside here. And you can see that it's got these marks right here and they can line up so you can kind of see where you've got it set, you know, from factory, probably being straight up and down with the lines matching up. We can move it forward, we can move it back. If we move it clockwise, because remember, it's pivoting around this screw right here. So this screw just tightens it down. This screw, if you look underneath here, I'll pull this screw out. The hole that this screw sits in is cut in an oval so that plate is allowed to articulate underneath the screw. This hole that this screws in is cut just as a circle, so it can't move. There's no slop in there. It just either pinches and holds it or allows it to move back and forth. So with this one in there, we can move this back and forth. Now, as we move this back and forth, you can see how it changes where this sits up here at the top. If I rotate clockwise like this, that brings the plate down and back, which brings the arm down. So the arm is riding on the bearing and causing this to sit closer to the three-way right here, to the pin that's going to be sitting right there. So when I pull the trigger, it's already going to be pushing on that pin or closer to the pin, and it's going to activate faster. If I have it up, rotate it up as far as it goes, you can see that the pin or the arm has moved up and away, and it has moved forward as well. And so as I pull the trigger, it's going to take it longer to get that pin completely depressed, and our timing is going to be slower. So cool kind of feature. I don't know how many people are going to use that, but it's definitely, I think it's cool. It's just kind of like, it's kind of like being able to change the timing on an autococker in a way right there. So I think that's really kind of interesting inside of there. Plus you've got your other points of adjustment. You know, you got your rake adjustment right here. We've got our magnetic adjustment, our post-travel adjustment. All those things are still there with our safety. It's still there as well. So lots of options as far as adjustability in the gun. Now let's kind of do some stuff here. Let's get this installed on there. Oh, another thing I wanted to show you guys is when the frame is in the box right here. We've got our box and our frame like that. There's a piece of foam right here that is just loosey-goosey. But if you look at the back side, it does have a little bit of sticky tape that you can peel off and stick in there. This is for when you switch this over, you take this out and you can take this out and your electronic frame will fit in there now. If you have this in here, you can have this in, and now your mech frame fits in there, and mech frame isn't sloppy and moving around. So they give you this as an option. You could tape that down if you're never going to use the electronic frame inside here. Or I like to just leave it loose like there, and you can have it either way. You just take this and stick it over here when your electronic frame's in there. When your mech frame's in there, you go ahead and just stick that in, and now you've got something holding that and taking up the slack. So I thought that was pretty cool. So let's do a couple things. Let's get our grips all the way off of here, and we're going to set our rubber grips just off to the side. Let's take our barrel off of our transfer gun right there. Let's take grip off of here. I'm going to move this just over to the side as well. So we've got this set up here. I'm going to take the bolt out because we need to get to that screw that's inside there to get this frame off. I'm going to take these grips off, although you don't really need to if you're just doing a straight frame transfer. But if we wanted to take our solenoid or our electronics package out and move it over, which I am going to do, we would need to have the grips off right here. All right, so let's get the frame just off the gun real quick. I'll take this front screw out. And we're going to reuse these screws. We don't need different ones or new ones. So that comes off of there. And then we can separate our electronic frame and get our mech frame ready to go on there. So here's the top. So there's a couple things we need to transfer over. So the things you want to look at before you do this, if you've never taken this apart. So we've got our board. This is our sensor board up here. We've got some wiring running from our sensor board that goes down through the side right here. We're going to take that wiring and we're going to make sure, see how it runs under this blue arm right here? We're going to make sure that wiring runs under this blue arm here. And then there's a nice cutout in the side of our frame for all of our wiring to come down into here. This cutout is not available on this gun here. It has to run in between the solenoid and the frame. But since there is no room for that on this setup, we're going to run it in this nice cutout that's right there. Okay, so let's move some stuff around, because basically just putting this on is easy. We can just, we're done. Now we've got our mech frame on there and we're ready to go. But if we're going to take our electronics and move it over, that's something we need to do. So let's get the electronics out. Give ourselves a little more room here. And then we're going to take our gasket. We're going to move it over to our three-way there. So we've got that in there. Now we're going to unplug some of our stuff that we need here. This wiring, unplug that. This is our solenoid. We're going to need to unplug it, although we can leave it in there. Although we might need to actually remove it. This is the first time I'm doing this swap. So everybody's going to do it together. I guess we probably could have left this one attached. This is our micro switch wire right here. That one could stay attached, but let's just take it all out. Make it easy, take it all out. Let's get our solenoid out. Push out our pin, and that can get our solenoid up and out. Set that to the side right there. And now it's going to be easy for us to get our wiring up and through the gun. So we can take that out and that out. So now we've got our wiring up through the top. We can move it from underneath our trigger carrier right there. And then from over here, we can undo this screw and take this out the top. One thing I'll remind you is there's batteries inside here, and the batteries are pushing up against this. So it's always good to just either release the batteries or take them out completely so that they're not pushing against this anymore. We take this screw, pull that up, and then we can take that out. See, we've got on this, we've got these sprung sections right here. This is what the battery is pushing up against when it's in the gun. So we take that tension off so this thing doesn't go boing or try to push up or anything like that when we undo this screw that's on there. All right, so we can move over to here, which still we need to pull out our micro switch that's in there if you want to use like the shot counter and things like that. So we're going to go ahead and put that in. Make sure we've got it level. Tighten that down. Get our wiring underneath our arm. Like that. That keeps it nice and tidy so that when you go to put your body on, it doesn't smash any of your wiring. And this is going to come down in here. And we're kind of just going to need to tuck all that stuff. Once we get it, you know, buttoned up, we're going to need to tuck all that stuff in. We're going to slide our electronics package out. Just being gentle with it. And then that's going to go down in there. So now we've got our electronics in. We're going to take this out. Before we do, I do need a screwdriver here. There's 2 screws we need to remove to get our micro switch out. And if you didn't want to use this, you wouldn't need to. If you were only maybe wanting to put the electronics package in for a game timer or whatever, then just use it for that. You wouldn't need the micro switch, although I would probably just transfer everything over. Now we're going to have to kind of, because this wiring has been used to being in the CS3 in a certain way, kind of the wires have been, they've been trained to go a certain direction. So they're going to want to sit like that. So you're going to just kind of have to massage them into place. All right, there we go. And now you can see that if my safety's off, as I pull the trigger right here, there's a screw that's right here that's going to interact with the micro switch. So I'll need to adjust that screw if I was planning on using that right there. So let's take this and plug this in. There. Let's bring our eye wire down. Plug that in. And then our power wire. Plug that in right there. And again, all of this stuff, you're going to want to just kind of find the best way to have this stuff sit in here. I'll probably do that. And again, because this wiring has been in the CS3, the electric CS3 for so long, it wants to kind of do a certain thing in there. So we're going to have to kind of just retrain it to do something else. So there we go. We've got all that in there. Let's go ahead and put this on. And I just want to make sure that I don't have any kind of pinching of any wires or anything like that. Because that's not something you want to damage. All right, looks good. All right, let's pop our batteries compartment open. Let's put our batteries in, make sure they're facing the right direction. And put that in, and then just to make sure everything's good, I'm going to power that up. And it's good. In this, there's going to be a mech setting that's available now. I don't believe, obviously this is not going to be in here because this gun was produced, the software that's on this was done before the mech frame came out. So there's a new ePortal software update that's available, and that will come with all this new software packaging in there. So you'll go through into your presets, and then there should be an option in there that would say mech on it, but you need to update first. And then you'll be able to do that. You'll be able to have the mech setting on here. But we're just going to be in. So, well, we're going to go outside. We'll just put it in semi no cap. There we go. Perfect, 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 perfect. Now let's get our grips on. These were our ones for this. We can take, before I put that other one on, let's take our solenoid and just drop it back in here so we don't lose it or it doesn't get damaged or anything. We'll put our pin back through, and then we can take this and put it on here. Take this, put it on here. Your grips. Them on there. This is just storage. I don't want to lose any of this stuff, so there and there, and then we can put that in there. And you see with this gone, it fits perfectly nice right inside there. All right, so now the only thing I really need to worry about with this is making sure that as I put my grips on, that my wiring is out of the way and I'm not smoshing anything. So I don't want to crush. Don't want to give anything a crush. All right, looks good. We can lock our grips, put our bolt back in, and there we have it. So our mech frame set up. We've got our electronics package installed. Obviously, we can't put it in the mech setting so that it tracks the trigger pulls and got the game timer, all that stuff right now, because this hasn't been updated with that software package yet. But it's in there and it's ready to go. So let's take this CS3 outside with the mech frame and shoot it and see how it goes. So we've made it outside with the CS3 where we just installed the mech frame on there with the electronics package inside of it. Let's go ahead and shoot it and see what we can do. Easy to install, lots of fun to have. If you're looking for a CS3 and converting it over to mech, the frames are in stock, ready to sell at ansgear.com.